gone, I worked for my life. I had to start again, just my children and my wife. I thank my God above, living here today. The flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Hi, I'm Allison Salinas. Welcome to Citizen Watch, where your voice matters. Good evening, guys. So I have a great guest tonight. Her name is Theresa Raborn, and she is the 2020, sorry about this, guys. I thought it was running. Sorry about that. So the 2020 Republican congressional nominee. So I want to welcome Theresa Raborn to our podcast tonight. Hi. And I also want to welcome Christian Sass.
I'm only producing in the background, so I'm going to go away.
He's producing the show. So hi, Theresa. Good evening, and how are you?
I'm doing great. God woke me up today. My family's happy and healthy, did my taxes, and don't owe anything. And now I'm here talking to you. So it's a fabulous day.
Awesome. Wow. So I kind of met you through Rebuild Illinois a little bit. And I think maybe we might have talked once or twice at that time. It was a very limited introduction. But so 2020 Republican congressional nominee, what were some of your stances and what you stood for when you were running, and what are they now?
Well, initially it started out as I developed a healthcare plan after the Republicans were trying to come up with an Obamacare repeal and replace in 2017, and that failed miserably because they didn't really have a plan ready. And I figured, well, if they aren't going to come up with a plan, then I might as well, and so I started typing out something that I had actually dreamed about one night. And the more and more I thought about it, it just got bigger and bigger, and more of the details fell into place. And then I started seeing a lot of problems with our education system. So I developed a plan for that. So next thing I know, I have all these plans. I was going to start doing podcasts and do a political blog. And my husband one day said, why don't you run for office to get your ideas out there? And I told him, you're crazy. That was my first response. And I, of course, told family and friends about my husband's crazy idea, and they agreed with him and not me. So I was feeling the pressure to enter the race, and I realized that the district just really needed someone who really cares to represent them, and not just some political hack who's in it for themselves. So I entered the race, and then of course everything changed, because by the time I was already on the ballot and we got to the primary, which I was running unchallenged in the primary, so I knew I was going to win that. Right after that is when all of the COVID stuff happened, and everyone that I talked to, I started calling everyone, okay, I'm new to this political thing. I don't know how to run a campaign, and I'm just getting, some stability in it. What do I do in this circumstance? And everyone was saying, we don't know either. So it was quite literally the blind leading the blind, and everything was flying by the seat of our pants, basically. And that's, so everything kind of morphed more into the freedom. We heard the defund the police, and I spoke out at Reopen Illinois rallies and Back the Blue rallies. where I was saying we don't need to defund, we need to defend the police. I even heard that some people in Congress were trying to say that we need to defund the military, which is utterly ridiculous. And we just kept seeing our rights being encroached upon more and more every day. And the rules became more and more outrageous. And I didn't realize when I first entered the race just how close we were to losing our freedom and our liberty. And the closer we got to election, I realized that this is the time for our generation to truly rise up and fight for our freedom. And I don't mean fight as in, physical fight. I mean, we need to speak up. We need to get engaged. We need to be involved. Everyone needs to be involved. And so I'm still involved in the whole political arena. I'm just weighing my options on where I want to be, if I want to be in a more support role or run another campaign.
Absolutely. Well, and you talked about education, and I want to touch on that because there's a bill that's going to JCAR soon. And it's an interesting bill. It's a little bit heartbreaking, gut-wrenching to say the least, to a lot of people. And so the familiarity with the bill is, in a nutshell, they're going to divide your children into race, and they're going to ask the Caucasian race to apologize for theirs. They're going to open up a informed agenda to teach about whether it be Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and then they're going to encourage these children to go on field trips. And from my understanding is any teacher that disagrees with this can lose their teaching license. So with that in play, and with that being an option until, I know several people are working hard to make sure that does not pass. And I know there's other language in that bill, but that's the gist of what bothers me about it. So what is your take on that? And what would you change, obviously, when it comes to that compared to what your views were on education when you ran?
Well, first of all, I don't have a stake in this because I'm a homeschooling mom. So this doesn't really apply to me, but it does apply to us overall as a society. And making people apologize for something for which they did not have anything to do with is utterly ridiculous. That's like having someone go and apologize for the crimes that their family committed. We don't expect, if a man commits murder, we don't expect his entire family to apologize for that. We don't hold other people responsible. This is about personal responsibility. That's what our country is based on. You do not have to pay for the sins of your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, uncles, cousins, your kids. That's not how our country is designed. And putting that burden on children is evil in my mind. Do we need to teach about acceptance and inclusivity and all of that? Yes. We want our children to grow up to judge each other based on the content of their character and their own individual actions, not based on a group. And we need to teach that to our children so that they can be held responsible for their actions in the future and they understand their role in the future. But to make them live a life of burden with this on them is wrong. They didn't do anything to create this mess. They had nothing to do with it. And in my case, specifically, my family members, when I trace my lineage, my family, my ancestors died fighting on the side of the Union during the Civil War and such. So my family has always been about inclusivity and not being racist. So why should my children bear a burden that they don't deserve? My family paid that price. And so it's not right. It's too generalized in my mind. But also we don't put that burden on children. You just don't. That's similar to parents divorcing and then they spill all their beans on their marital problems with their kids. and make their kids pick sides. There are certain things that we need to let our children just be children and not put all these huge burdens on their shoulders.
Absolutely.
And there was actually one a couple years ago, right when I was just starting my race, starting to run for Congress, and a Democrat in Springfield put up a bill to so that all homeschooling families would be investigated for neglect or abuse. And my husband got very upset. I got very upset too, because we're a homeschooling family, and being held under some suspicion of doing something wrong to your children when you're doing what you believe is right and you're not committing any abuses or neglect. My husband got upset and wrote an email. I took to my computer and I wrote up a bill because I was running for the federal side of things. So my response was, I see your state bill and I'll raise you a federal bill.
Good answer.
So
Definitely.
that's how I looked at it.
One of the perks about it, and definitely is. So let's talk a little bit about some of your policies that you wrote. If you had to pick one of your policies, I know you shared several with me, but if you had to pick one of your policies that means the most to you, that is, I know they all do. I know they all mean something to you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. But if you had to pick one that would be the first thing you would handle, which one would that be?
Well, I know everyone always asks which one would be the first one. I don't believe in the first one. There's probably about 3 that would be the first, but I would be actively working on getting my colleagues on board to vote in favor of them. But if I had to pick one, it would have to be the Educating for Success bill, because everything comes down to education. Everything comes back to education and how we raise our children. If we're not teaching them the proper things, and what I mean by that is right now, our schools are teaching our children what to think rather than teaching them how to think. We're supposed to be teaching them how to solve their own problems, how to do research, how to find solutions and think for themselves and not follow along with the group. And that's what we're seeing right now in our country is so many people are just following along with what everyone else is doing. We need to teach our children to be individuals and to stand up for what they believe in, but to develop their beliefs based on evidence. Do your research and then let that formulate your opinion. We've taken away history so much. We have really reshaped that to the point to where we're teaching them to hate their own country. It's disgusting. It's on a national level, it's national suicide. It's basically trying to destroy our Constitution and our way of our entire nation and its inception and founding, which was actually very divine. I honestly think it was divine because it was all based on freedom and liberty and personal responsibility. And we're getting away from that. There's been a lot of indoctrination and we need to get away from that. We need to, and one of the biggest things with my education plan with Educating for Success is that every child will progress in each subject at their own pace. So we don't have a whole class of 20 or 30 students all moving on with 2 or 3 or 5 students that didn't understand the previous day's material. It's very individually based, but it also puts a lot of the pressure back onto the kids to advance as they master the material. So if they get a 60% on a test, then they would retake those couple of weeks of material until they can get a passing score of at least 80%. And once they do that, then they move on to the next subject. So it's not everyone moving on together. It's not a cookie cutter system. It's more individualized, and it takes the teacher out of the role of teaching and more as an assistant or facilitator that's just supervising and assisting them with helping them find the answers. And it's a great method for educating children so that they'll grow up knowing how to answer questions themselves rather than growing up and saying, I don't know how to do this and having to ask someone else for help. We want them to be independent once they reach the age of 18 and be able to handle life.
And see, this subject is kind of near and dear to my heart because I grew up in special education classes and I was deemed with ADD and several other things that weren't even an issue. I mean, it was to some extent, but I had a lot of, they called it learning disabilities, and I was literally pushed through school up until high school when I was old enough to go to my own ARD meeting, and they decided, or I decided at that point, I was 18, and I could, I remember it was my senior year, and I wanted to take all regular classes. I was like, nope, you're not handing me my diploma. I was literally with the No Child Left Behind Act, I was the epitome of that. So they just pushed me through and pushed me through and pushed me through until I was at the end of the rope and said, okay, well, here's your piece of paper. Well, I wasn't willing to accept that. So your bill, the way it's talking, that had that been in place, even though I was originally actually from Texas, so this was in Texas, but still, either way, if they had that bill, then it would have been able to be implemented with me. And instead of me raising my hand saying, I don't understand, and the teacher coming over here, and then giving me the answer instead of making me think for myself. And I was never, it was all or nothing. So I can understand it and have, respect for that kind of bill because it does help. And you're right. Every child doesn't learn the same. They're all on different levels and they have to succeed on their own merits. And they can do that with the right foundation.
Well, and a lot of my educational expertise not only comes from being a homeschooling mom, but my mom was number 5 out of 7 kids. She was a twin, and she's in her 70s. So, of course, growing up back when she was in the 50s and 60s, they did just push you through, and they didn't have special ed. And my mom really got pushed through, and she ended up dropping out of high school. She's always felt like she wasn't smart. And yet, after her and my dad divorced when I was a baby, she raised me on her own. She did not take government assistance at all. She figured out a way to get a job and to support me and all of this stuff. And I saw how it affected her when our education system is not looking at the individual and doing it on an individual basis. So I have that background. And luckily, my mom took the other extreme. She started teaching me how to read when I was like 3 or 4. So I entered kindergarten knowing how to read. And so I was always advanced. So between my mom not being where she needed to be and then me being advanced, it comes together that I see both sides of that. And by the way, what my mom lacks in book smarts, she more than makes up in common sense. Trust me, I am in my 40s. I have a college degree. I went to law school, and yet I still go to my mom for advice. So,
as it should be. I still go to my mom all the time too.
Hey, our moms are the smartest people we know, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about an event coming up. Just give it a few minutes because you're actually speaking at this event.
Yes.
And I know there's a few things that we're going to leave out. So, and not talk about, but there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, so this event, it's a gala on April 2nd in Effingham, Illinois, and my campaign's throwing it, but it's for a really good cause. Yes. And I kind of want to see, I already know, I know what your views are, but the public might not know. So we're going to talk a little bit about the cause. It's for backing men and women in uniform, in all range of uniform, whether it's military, doctors, nurses, police, fire, first responders, you name it, it's there. Again, I know your stance, but what is your stance with that? And what is your, what made you want to speak at this event?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of military in my family, and I do have some law enforcement. And my degree is actually in criminal justice. So when I was going to college, I was working full time. So I was going in the evening, afternoon, and a lot of the correctional officers and police officers would walk me to my car to make sure I got there safely. So it became more of a brother-sister type relationship. And I've always had that closeness. But I think a lot of people don't realize just how much those in law enforcement do. just a quick story from a couple years ago. One of my daughters started choking on a butterscotch candy, and she could still breathe. I've been through first aid CPR, so I knew that she was still breathing. She was still getting air through, but I didn't know where it was in her throat. And so I didn't know how we're going to solve this. And so I called 911. And when they asked me how old my daughter was, and I said 8, next thing I know, I had pretty much, I think, every police officer and paramedic in town showed up. My house was full of people in uniform. And the police don't just chase the bad guys. They're there to lend support for our paramedics, for our fire department, and for so many others. We need them. We need them to make sure they are skilled in being able to calm a panicked parent down. When they show up on a scene, there's usually someone who made that call who said, I'm in a situation that I can't handle and I need help. And when they show up, that person who made that call, even if they don't express it audibly, inside they're going, oh, thank God. They're so thankful to have them show up. And even if you have bad experiences with law enforcement, when they show up in your time of need, you're going to be so happy that they are. They are the ones that hold all of us together. And as far as, did I just have this stance just since I started running for office? No. I started teaching my children their bedtime prayers when they were very little. As a matter of fact, it was even before my twins were born, when my oldest was still like 2. And part of the prayer was, please God, watch over all the men and women who risk their lives to protect us every day. And that prayer was to encompass police, fire, paramedics, military, the whole thing. Because, when I was dealing with a 2-year-old, we couldn't go through the whole list. So we simplified it to all the men and women who risk their lives to protect us every day.
That's pretty commendable. I like that. And I'm going to be thrilled to meet you in person and hear you speak. And we have some other speakers, and I just kind of want to give a small shout out. Ben Beerley, a friend of mine, he's going to be speaking. William Kelly, who is running for mayor in Chicago in 2022, he's going to be speaking, and a couple others. And we're going to have a young lady who's an artist. She's going to perform her rock star of a song that I love. And we're just going to have a great time. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, Theresa, but it was great having you on the show, and I appreciate you coming out not really coming out, but, because we're stuck in our homes for right now. Well, for the most part anyway. And, it's going to be a great gala. It's, it's got a lot of meaning and a lot of punch to it, to the heart. And we've got a lot of great people involved, a lot of great sponsors. One individual that I do want to give a shout out to, he personally sponsored for an artist to come to Effingham that is slightly a bigger artist. So that's pretty awesome. But I really think that in this time, even with the gala supporting our men and women in uniform, and, us rising up together is always important. And just kind of realizing, where we need to stand as Americans. And if we don't stand together, we have nothing.
And so especially for our law enforcement who are under attack so much right now, we all need to stand up and have their backs, because they have ours. And they need, even if nothing else, pray for them, because they need those prayers, and so do their families. Their families put up with a lot, and they know that any day their loved one may not come home. So
absolutely. And this reaches from, absolutely. And this reaches from, our police and fire all the way down to our men and women in combat, and back up to the nurses and doctors. So even, correctional officers, it's a tough job. And there's danger around every corner. So they're literally fighting for us in one form or another. I want everybody to welcome me next week on Citizen Watch. William Kelly will be on. Again, he is running for mayor of Chicago, so I'm very excited to have him on. And we're going to be discussing this bill that's going to JCAR, guys. So William Kelly has a solution, and we will get with that solution next week. We will see you guys in 1 week from today. God bless and good night.
Can I add one more thing before we go?
Sure.
Theresa also has a new social platform that was set up, I believe. Is that correct? Did you want to tell everyone what that was?
Raborn for Congress on Telegram. You
Yep.
can follow me there. I am on Facebook and Twitter and a bunch of other social media platforms, but I'm not posting a whole lot because I've been shadow banned. So we're going over to, I was shadow banned even before the election. So I guess I got too much momentum in my election that they decided to start shadow banning me. So we're going over to alternative social media and platforms and texting and all of that. So you can follow me over there and we'll have a great conversation. We'll see what the future holds.
All right, Theresa and Christian, good night and God bless.